Hi, Matt. It's Ron. You guys, please forgive me for interrupting. I didn't mean to break into your
No, not at all.
conversation.
Pineapple
We,
pizza?
we,
But
we
Channel 4, I'm flipping back and forth, and Kyle Rittenhouse acquitted on all charges, in
Oh,
case you
yeah.
guys weren't aware or didn't know.
oh, yes,
Oh, we
absolutely.
know.
Oh, we know.
I wasn't
Oh, okay.
following it, though, because Dirk was saying how partisan it was. I
Yeah.
just wasn't following it. I didn't want to be triggered by it. I was having my...
I just hope the streets remain calm. I hate to see something silly happen over this.
Yeah, I
don't think-
won't be particularly surprised either way if things do get if there are. I mean, I think there will be protests, but I'm hopeful that there's no violence.
Remember, he's
Yeah,
going to...
I hope police presence is well thought out in advance.
Oh, I'm sure. My mother lives in Kenosha, Wisconsin, so
Sure,
obviously
they
I
have-
want her to
Is that
be
right?
safe.
Yeah.
They got the National Guard ready, I'm sure,
yeah.
and the SWAT and
Yeah, no doubt.
teams.
No doubt.
Okay, guys, have a good weekend. That was my 2 cents. I didn't know if you knew it or not.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Ron. Thank you for the call, my friend.
Good night.
All right, bye-bye.
Well,
All right.
what do you think of the verdict?
I kind of wasn't following it that closely myself in terms of I've been what I've been saying about it on the show and actually on other shows that I've been on too, talking about it, is that whenever we have a case like this, I tend to not worry so much about, the court, the laws are different in every state when it comes to guns and self-defense and all of that. And so it gets very complicated. So I tend to say, well, the jury will decide, but
And that is the foundation of our
yes.
society, which is based on law. It is the jury.
Right. So when we're talking about these, although I do have some more precise thoughts regarding the other big trial that's going on right now, Ahmaud Arbery, I think
that's real
I think
vigilantism.
that's clearly vigilantism. Yes,
a lynching.
Yeah, absolutely. But I grapple with the larger question here whenever a case like this is presented, and that is, what is the responsibility of, well, look, if you're in a situation where it's kill or be killed, but you're the one who put yourself in that situation knowing you were going into, a scenario where that might be the case, where it's kill or be killed. How much of the responsibility is on you as the person who put yourself in that situation versus how much responsibility is it on the other people who are now a danger to you because you put yourself in that situation? And that's what I struggle with. Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't have been there. I think that's the one thing that everybody can agree on.
Was there a curfew?
He should not. Yes.
And he violated it.
Correct.
And
So in theory, no one should have been there legally because there was an established curfew. Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't have been there. So, if you just look at it that way, you might say, okay, well, he's guilty then because he put himself in that situation. On the other hand, he was there and other people were attacking him and he felt that his life was in jeopardy. So he was defending himself. Well, if you look at it strictly on that, then you would say, well, he's not guilty of anything. He was defending himself. It's self-defense.
Because of the laws of the state of Wisconsin.
Right, but that's not what I'm talking. I'm just talking about in a larger, just morally and ethically in a broader sense. When you put yourself in a situation where you should know that this is a possibility. Let me give you another example. So I go back to Trayvon Martin when he was killed by George Zimmerman. So on the one hand, Trayvon, when he got to his home after being stalked, and I do call it stalking, by Zimmerman, Trayvon, he should have just gone inside. He should not have turned around and gotten into an altercation with Zimmerman. So he's on top of Zimmerman. He's pummeling him. Zimmerman thinks he's about to be pummeled to death, so he shoots him in self-defense. So if you look at it that way, well, Zimmerman's not guilty. But who created the scenario? Well, Zimmerman did. Zimmerman should not have been stalking him to begin with. Zimmerman was told by law enforcement on the phone, do not follow him. Zimmerman shouldn't have just been following the kid, and he was a kid.
He was a kid.
Just because, there's a black kid wearing a hoodie at the apparently very late hour of 7 p.m. in my neighborhood. Oh, he's up to something. I got to follow him. Zimmerman should not have been doing that to begin with. Shouldn't have been harassing him that way. So
right. And
so ultimately, now we know who the jury decided legally was at fault. they acquitted Zimmerman. But I grapple with the larger question, morally and ethically. Zimmerman created the conditions for that to happen.
Yes.
But then again, regardless of whether or not he created those conditions, and he clearly did,
But then
what is he supposed to do when Trayvon Martin is on top of him, pummeling him? Is he supposed to just allow himself to be beaten to death? Well, of course not. So this is what I grapple with, John. I grapple with this larger question about personal responsibility and who's responsible for what in these situations. And so I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about that with Rittenhouse. Like I said, Ahmaud Arbery, I have much more. That seems much more concrete to me. Yeah, of course. Some people, I think, though, they think of it. They try to think of these things the way that I think of them in ways in situations where it's not appropriate to. For example, the death of George Floyd. That's as cut and dry as it gets to me. We all saw George Floyd, being murdered on video, and yet there are people who will say, oh, well, he shouldn't have been in that situation. He shouldn't have tried to pass that counterfeit 20 or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, come on.
Right,
this is pretty clear cut.
Passing counterfeit money isn't a death sentence.
Right.
And as a law enforcement officer whose friend of mine said, once you're disabled somebody with a hold, once they're disabled, it's over. You're supposed to stop immediately. And that's part of the standard operating procedure. I mean, when you're in the Army, it's hard to believe that there are rules of warfare or what you can and can't do. But there are.
There are, yeah. Absolutely. So that's where I am with it. I just kind of said with Rittenhouse, well, the jury will decide. But it is interesting, though. The laws are so different from state to state. The gun laws and what is your right to, how far does your right to self-defense go? Do you have to meet the aggressor with proportionate, aggression to defend yourself, or can you go beyond that? Do you have a right to do you have a duty to retreat, I should say?
Some states,
or can you stand your ground? It varies wildly, and and clearly, you could take this trial that happened in Wisconsin. You could go to any other state with it, and you might have a different outcome based, all other things being equal, the prosecutors, the jury, the judge, everything, all other things being exactly the same. But in another state, you might have a completely different outcome because the laws are so disparate between the states.
Right. You couldn't have a long gun like Rittenhouse on a street in New York or Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Because of the much stricter gun control laws.
Yeah.
Or even California over the last somewhat odd years.
Yeah.
You remember what I told you once about street logic? This isn't about people wearing shorts either.
Street Logic, is that a hip hop group?
I thought that was the band that you were in.
Street Logic, no.
Amongst people that make their living on the street, once you put on a gun or a weapon, you've given yourself a death sentence because they're going to consider you're going to kill them. So to put on, to bear an arm, we're not talking about the police, who probably do have no street logic. And we're not talking about Joe Sixpack or the militia yahoos. We're talking about people on the street. The demi-monde, the criminal element. You bear a gun, you've passed a death sentence on yourself. It's similar to what James Jones said about what it's like in World War II to get through basic training and get through your training. You've entered onto the rolls of the dead. Now, you might survive, but you've gone beyond the veil. Now they're going to throw you into Guadalcanal or Tarawa.
So based on that, then would you say from your perspective that Rittenhouse...
He was, I think,
because he had the gun.
It was a very provocative act. He was looking. Yeah. He was looking to kill somebody. There's little doubt in my mind.
Really?
Of course.
You think so?
You're armed with a gun, like you're going out like that. He was looking to kill somebody. Wasn't there a bit of videotape that got disallowed?
I'm not sure
because
he
was going to go out. I wasn't following that closely.
Yeah, I wasn't following closely enough to know that.
I don't really
you really think though? So you think there was premeditation?
Of course, with a rifle, with an armed, with that type of weapon. He did have an assault rifle, did he not?
It's an AR-15.
It's an assault rifle.
Okay, you know more about guns than I do. Yeah,
civilian version of the M16 I had as a soldier. He's out hunting. He's out to kill somebody.
You don't think he went there just to because he wanted to be part of the action in terms of defending businesses
you mean
and all
action, that? Right?
Well,
how do you defend, Matt? By killing somebody, by shooting somebody. When you have when you're armed, you have made the statement that I'm willing to kill somebody. And the other thing about street logic, I forgot that. Unless you're willing to drop that hammer and kill, don't have a weapon, because somebody will take it right away from you. And, this other thing, there's more graphic language, like stick it up or they'll kill you with it. But they'll take it away from you. Any fool that has a weapon that's armed, that doesn't intend to use it, you're a damn fool. You are literally a damn fool. But you don't go out armed. Defend stuff? Is he sworn? Well, how old was he? Was he in the military?
No,
was he in the militia?
17.
A real militia, not
17. I'm not You understand? I'm not defending him. I'm just saying
that must have had something to do with the jury too. If he's just 17.
But I would not. Well, yeah, but I would not have. See, I would not say.
You don't play with guns.
Right, but I would not presume premeditation. So someone can't take a gun in a situation like that and just say, well, I want to be a cowboy. I'm going to go and I'm going to go and stand.
What does a cowboy do?
Yeah, but you have people in these scenarios standing in front of businesses. Hell, it happened here in Manchester on South Willow Street. Nobody got shot, but so
they could have.
They could have. Right.
And now with this great example,
well, that I do worry about.
This great example, we had a mayoral candidate stand out there with him.
I do worry about.
You see, what you're saying is, I don't mean to say you're naive, but you are naive because
I'm actually
don't go out with weapons.
I'm actually just trying to explore different angles to have a discussion on a radio show, John. I'm not. You always do this. You assume that I'm taking a position when all I'm doing is trying to look at things from different perspectives.
Because from my, I'm taking the You're being the.
I specifically said I'm not defending or condemning him. I'm trying to explore different angles here. Well, it's like I said, I didn't follow it closely enough to form a strong opinion, so I'm grappling with the larger question.
I'm coming from where I was enculturated. Been around guns all my life.
But
NRA, junior NRA, but I quit.
Yeah,
over the assault ban.
But people carry guns with no intention of actually using them unless it's necessary.
What does it mean necessary?
People carry guns for self-defense.
What does that mean, necessary?
Well, if you have to defend yourself from being killed yourself.
Killing somebody. Because you don't shoot. One of the other things is you shoot center mass. You don't shoot somebody in the leg or.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these, I hate to say it, I was watching one video from last year. It didn't become a big controversy, but some kid had a gun. It's not the one you're probably thinking about where the kid comes out of that convenience store. It's in a neighborhood. And then he just moves he's got a pistol, he moves his arm, and that cop shoots him right center mass. Mm-hmm. Not in the head because you might miss. You shoot right towards the solar plexus.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
You shoot to kill. Shooting to wound is in movies.
Yeah.
Getting shot and then just getting up and shaking things off. I mean, any guy that's been in a real fist fight or anything, it hurts for a long time.
Of course.
They break your nose or they smash you in the ribs. There's 4 months of sleeping on your other side.
Oh, yeah.
But, in the movies, they're just such a... That's one of the things about... Clockwork Orange is so highly stylized. It's all shot with very short lenses to actually distort stuff. But, Kubrick, this is 1971. This is the first violence that's being shown on the screen. Bonnie and Clyde was 1967 that used squibs to show blood. Then you had the Wild Bunch, which with a massacre as the climax, all sorts of squirting blood. And then, that was a real shock in those times. They didn't show stuff like that. I mean, cowboys would be shooting Indians and they'd fall off the horse. Do you ever wonder why Indians always just go round and round and all get killed? It's like one Native American, I think it was Dennis Banks, That's the movies. Nobody actually did that, but it's very cinematic. Right? They asked the great director John Ford, 4 Oscars. One of his contemporaries, it must have been Howard Hawks, said at the Stagecoach, why don't the Indians just shoot the lead horse? He said, because then we'd only have a 10-minute long movie.
Right. Right.
But, there's ideas about what this is.
Yeah.
And what's the reality of violence. It's, it's there in A Clockwork Orange, although it's so, everybody except for the Padre, well, even he's very arch, but I'm talking, you haven't seen the movie in a long time. And Alex is being conditioned to be physically sick by watching violent films. And one of the ironies in the movie, he says, the blood starts flowing like it's on tap and it's made by the same company. And it's only real when you're watching it on the big screen in the cine. Rather, here's a guy that's beating and watching it, it's more real to him than that. And he's saying to a woman psychiatrist after the first day of conditioning where makes you physically sick and death-like paralysis. Violence always used to make me feel so horror show, which means wonderful, great. Yeah. And this made me feel awful. He says, and this woman, you're getting better. Violence is terrible. Not like she feels it. It's just something she's saying.
Right.
But violence is terrible.
Yeah.
That movie makes people, even to this day, violent reactions to it.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be pretty.
Right.
Although he was a genius, Kubert.
So Dirk is in the chat room and said something, and this is what I was trying to articulate, although I'm not sure I did, but I'll read what he said. There were others outside of Kenosha who openly had their rifles trying to defend businesses, just as Kyle did. Kyle was just in the unfortunate situation where he had people going after him.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that people you can just go out and defend any place. Even when the police tell you not to? I can just strap on a gun and go and defend? That's called vigilantism. That's vigilantism.
Just standing guard? What you would call that vigilantism?
They were going after his house? They were going after his business?
Oh, I see. Because Kyle had, right. Well, again, I go back to, I think we all agree he shouldn't have been there.
He was hunting. It's, Alex is 15 years old in the novel, but since Malcolm McDowell, who was in a great movie before 3 years called If, but Lindsay Anderson, If. That's a great movie people should see. Watch that before you watch A Clockwork Orange. He was 27 years old, so they made Alex 17. Mm-hmm. To me, I didn't realize watching it when I was a kid that he was supposed to be my age. I saw it when I was like 16
really?
or 17.
Yeah.
But Alex is 15 because most of your violence, including murders, like between kids that are like 18 and 28 or something, but even the cohort, the violence, like Trayvon Martin, he's young. I'm not going to back down.
Right.
I'm a man.
Right.
That's, Alex is proving he's a man.
I need to watch that again.
It's a tough thing to watch.
Eric's review of that made me want to watch it again, and then you talking about it as well. Because, like I said, I think I was 17 actually when I watched that. When a friend and I watched it, and I think we got about maybe a quarter to a third into it, and we were just like, we were just kind of uncomfortable, and
it's supposed to be, because what the woman says, violence is supposed to make you sick.
Right.
But see, in movies, they do aestheticize it, make it easy. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I saw one of the movies, Commando, where, a grenade goes off and he goes up in the air. Then he just shakes it off and then it goes back. I've seen, whereas, somebody, a grenade goes off, you lose your legs, you lose your life, or you lose your guts, or whatever. But, I mean, when did they put a badge on him? Because in the old days, like a sheriff would swear, put up your hand. I'm going to make you into a posse.
Right, deputized.
Posse comitus, the law.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But once again, it's state law.
Yeah.
Whether I can take on the state power. Because when I grew up, when I went through university, the state, not just talking about the United States, but the states themselves, because the states traditionally have exercise the police power.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a monopoly on violence, which included capital punishment. Although, that was pretty passé by the time I grew up. But, yeah, it's called suasive force, violence. And the state has a monopoly on it for a good reason, right? So people don't start killing people. Dirty Harry is a great movie. Pauline Kael, the great critic, called it a fascist movie. She loathed Clint Eastwood. But the second movie, which wasn't as good, is about vigilantes and the police force, and they try to recruit Harry, who's Harry Callahan, shoot first, ask questions later, and he says, "No, I won't join you guys." Where does it all stop?
Yeah,
because they used to have police death squads in Brazil, and there's allegations now they still have stuff like that in various cities.
Oh yeah,
but he says, your neighbor's dog takes a crap in your yard and you shoot him.
Right.
We've seen stuff like that. But
yeah,
this kid's going to is going to go through the civil system now, but he has no assets.
Right. Yeah.
His life's destroyed.
It's funny. I actually hadn't thought of that, but yeah, civil lawsuits.
There's nothing they can get from him.
Right.
His AR-15.
Well, what about his? Can they? Because he's a minor, can they go after his family in a civil suit?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It would depend on the state.
Yeah.
Then the Justice Department can indict him for what was the color of the people he shot?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, so that's
the reason for that law was from the South, where they would indict some cracker sheriff or something, lynching people, like the three guys in Philadelphia, Mississippi Burning made a fictionalized version of it.
Yeah,
and although a lot of it was true, and they'd get off because the jury let them off. So then they'd hit them with federal charges, violation of civil rights.